أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله تعالى وأحسن الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. قال الله تعالى: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما ثم أما بعد. All thanks and praise due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for we seek His help and His forgiveness, and we seek refuge in Allah from the evil within ourselves and the consequences of our evil deeds. Whoever Allah guides can never be led astray, and whoever Allah leads astray can never find guidance. And I bear witness that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is His last and final messenger. In numerous hadith and ayahs of the Quran is there mention of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But this is a concept that we fail to recognize for numerous reasons. But the importance of this topic, or the importance of this matter, is extremely significant for multiple reasons. First and foremost, we are humans. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not have the expectation of us being perfect. We are going to sin. But there is a pattern, or there is a blueprint that an individual should follow once they do sin. What happens is when an individual does do something that they are not supposed to do, shaitan starts whispering in their ears that this is a downward spiral for you. And those whispers eventually become thoughts, and those thoughts eventually become action. And what happens is an individual then strays away from the deen, and this is extremely dangerous. There's one hadith or numerous hadith that come to mind, but there's two that we want to focus on, two separate sections. One hadith first and foremost, and then we'll talk about the second one inshaAllah. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that whoever does a good deed, and this is to kind of grasp the concept of the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whoever does a good deed will be rewarded 10 times it. The reward will be given to him 10x. And perhaps Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, hadith Qudsi mentions that it will be even more. That Allah's mercy does not have any limits. You will be rewarded for it 10x, if not more. And the hadith continues and says that whoever sins, they will be given a punishment for it one time, or Allah will forgive them. May Allah make us of those that are forgiven for our sins. So individuals who do a good deed will be given more reward, and someone who does a bad action will be given a single reward. Is that not a concept or a major concept of mercy? And the hadith also mentions, there's another hadith Qudsi, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that whoever comes to Allah, whoever goes to Allah, a handspan, so from this finger to this finger, a handspan, Allah will come to him in arm's length. Whoever goes to Allah walking, we are humans, we can run, sprint, whatever it is. Whoever goes walking, Allah will go to that individual in speed, running to him. Of course, it is not God-like for this deity to run. Metaphorical running, as in Allah will come to you even quicker than you could have ever imagined. Point being that whatever it is that you do, the effort will be reciprocated 10x, if not even more. There's 3 promises that I want all of you guys to keep in mind. And these promises are promises that Allah has made to you. Not no special individual, not this person who's done Hajj 20 times, not the person who's given this much in charity. No, to every single person there is 3 promises. First and foremost is that sins will not be multiplied, good deeds will. That you will be rewarded more for your good deeds as compared to sins which are 1x or they are forgiven. This is the mercy of Allah. That good deeds are multiplied and sins are not. First promise. Second promise is whoever goes out to seek Allah, whoever goes out to find Allah, Allah will make a path for you. This is a promise from Allah. That if you go to Him a handspan, He will come to you an arm's length. If you go to Him this much, He'll come to you closer this much. Whatever you do, Allah will do more for you. The initiative needs to be started by you. This is the pattern that follows in every single one of these promises. You do good deeds, as long as you do the good deeds, you'll be rewarded multiple times for it. And if you do a sin, it'll be what? One time, and perhaps Allah may even forgive you. But there's an element, of course, we're going to talk about later on as well. First and foremost, good deeds multiplied, sins are not. Secondly, whoever goes out to seek Allah, Allah will make a path for him. And the third promise that I want all of you guys to keep in your mind is the promise that forgiveness is always on the table. Allah's forgiveness and Allah's mercy is always an option, and this is without a doubt. Don't matter what you have done, does not matter what sin you have committed, does not matter the severity of the sin. All these hadith that talk about the mercy of Allah, that Allah will forgive all the sins, Allah will do this, that, and the third. There is no mention of how, okay, you know what? Only if you do minor sins, then it'll be forgiven. Oh, only if you do sins of this nature, no. Ayahs, for example, that talk about the forgiveness of Allah say Allah forgives all sins as long as you make the initiative to turn to Allah. The Hadith Qudsi also mentions that we were talking about earlier. And the last part of this Hadith, so we mentioned about coming to Allah, running to Allah, right? The last part of the Hadith mentions that whoever comes to Allah with an earth full of sins, I would hope that no one does this many sins. However, argument's sake, let's say an individual does sins day and night. Whoever goes to Allah with earth worth of sins, as long as that individual has not worshipped someone besides Allah, Allah says, I'll forgive him. As long as, the hadith mentions, as long as he has not worshipped false gods with me, I will come to him with as much forgiveness. So no matter what it is that you have done, doesn't matter the severity of the sin, doesn't matter how frequently you have done it, as long as you turn to Allah sincerely, and this element of sincerity we'll talk about later, as long as you turn to Allah, you are forgiven. Now, I must preface this by saying that it doesn't mean that we leave here and we go do whatever sin it is that we want. No. We have to stay on our deen, and this is where the element of sincerity comes in as well, which we'll talk in the second half, inshallah. But my point being that you turn to Allah, you make the initiative to turn to Allah. There is numerous ayahs, and it's not as though this is us trying to find ayahs or hadith and one small verse. No, the Quran and hadith are filled with these, because this is the importance of obtaining the mercy and doing your best to take the mercy and the forgiveness of Allah. We know the ayah in Surah Zumar, that very famous ayah that everyone, whenever they talk about this topic, this ayah is mentioned. قُلْ يَا عِبَادِيَ الَّذِينَ أَسْرَفُوا عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ لَا تَقْنَطُوا مِنْ رَحْمَةِ اللَّهِ. Whoever, قُلْ يَا عِبَادِيَ الَّذِينَ أَسْرَفُوا عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ, whoever has sinned and has transgressed themselves, their own souls, عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ لَا تَقْنَطُوا مِنْ رَحْمَةِ اللَّهِ. Do not despair of the mercy of Allah. This doesn't say, oh, if you have done a minor sin, then do not despair. No, it doesn't say if you have done a small action, then do not despair. No, whatever it is that you have done, قُلْ يَا عِبَادِيَ الَّذِينَ أَسْرَفُوا عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ لَا تَقْنَطُوا مِنْ رَحْمَةِ اللَّهِ. Do not despair of the mercy of Allah. Allah's mercy does not have circumstances, does not have criteria, no. As long as you turn to Allah and you ask for that forgiveness, which brings us to the next ayah, where in Surah Baqarah it says, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. When someone wants to turn to Allah, they say, you know what, I can't see this Allah that you are talking about. I cannot see this. How do I turn and believe? How do I understand this? First and foremost, my argument is, look around you. All the blessings that you have and all your mercy, this is enough of a sign. But even more so, Allah is telling you that don't worry, whether you see me or not, whatever it is. Whether you feel as though you are being tested, whether you feel as though you are lacking barakah in your life, whatever the case is, turn to Allah. And whenever my servant asks, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ, that whenever my servant asks of where I am, tell him that I am near. I am close. I am hearing everything. I see everything. I know of everything. I know those sins that you have committed. Everything you have done, Allah knows. And the same deity that is saying, I know all your sins, is the same deity that is telling you, come to me and I will forgive you. As long as we make the initiative to turn to Allah. This is the most important point. Numerous ayahs, numerous hadith talk about this. And why I'm mentioning this, it's a very simple reminder. But my point for mentioning this is because we are humans. I will make sins, you guys will commit sins, all of us will commit sins. But the best of those, like the hadith mentions, every son of Adam is a sinner. And the best of those sinners are the ones that turn back to Allah. May Allah make us of those that ask for His forgiveness. So those of us that turn back to Allah, ask for His forgiveness, not only do we have to make the initiative, right? But all that forgiveness is right there, waiting for you. All you have to do is you have to make the effort. When we have some sort of, reward or rather test in this dunya, whether it's a school exam, whether it's a business thing, whether it's a job promotion, everyone we go nuts, going above and beyond, trying to do whatever it is to obtain that blessing or to obtain that promotion. Why can't you put a little bit of effort into turning back to Allah? Our ultimate goal in this dunya is to get as many good deeds as we can, and at the same time trying to stay away from sin. And Allah tells you when you do sin, what happens? I forgive you. For those of you that are younger, when you guys play video games, it's as if you're playing a cheat code and you're going to set up yourself to win. It's very easy. Islam is not meant to be a burden. All these blessings are not simply a coincidence. Allah wants you to go to Jannah. Allah wants you to ask for forgiveness. You have to make that initiative to turn and ask for it. Look, our goal, like I mentioned, is to get as many good deeds as we can. Yes or no? to get as many good deeds as we can, and to stay away from as many sins as we can. The hadith right there that I mentioned earlier, you do one good deed, it's as though you are awarded 10 times for it. And when you do a sin only one time, and perhaps Allah might even forgive it. Simple. Everything is set up for us to succeed. Now if someone fails this test that is known as the dunya, may Allah make it easy for them, because everything, like I mentioned, is set up for us to win. To go on even further about the mercy of Allah and how easy things are for us as Muslims. There's a hadith that mentions, and to paraphrase this, just for the sake of time, an individual who thinks about doing a good deed will be rewarded for that good deed. And when an individual does a good deed and has the intention for it, he will be rewarded again. So not only, for example, let's say you intend on doing a good deed, and regardless of whatever circumstance it was, you were not able to fulfill that good deed, what happens? Allah still gives you the reward for it. Allah will still give you the reward for that action. And of course, if you have the intention, and then you do that action, you will be given the reward for 10x, perhaps even more. What happens now when someone sins? When someone has the intention to sin, and they do not sin, Allah writes that down as a good deed. And whoever sins, has the intention, and then sins as well, it'll only be written down as one deed. And that one deed that is written down, we know that we can turn to Allah and ask for forgiveness. And Allah, being as merciful as He is, will erase that sin completely. We know this, the dua, Allahumma innaka afuwun kareemun tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anna, to pardon. And that pardoning is not only, and this is a very important dua, we hear this all the time, what is the meaning behind pardoning? Pardoning meaning, like when you have a sin, it's written down. But that sin is, said, okay, he's not going to get punished for the sin. That pardoning, and this is furthermore the mercy of Allah, that when your sins are pardoned, not only is that sin erased, but any recollections the angel had of that sins completely goes away. This is the mercy of Allah. This is the blessings that we can obtain. But all these things that I mentioned are not for only prophets, are not only for kings and this and that and the third, or some person who does all the good deeds in the world. No, this is for everyone. There is not a single person in this room right now, or in this masjid, or any Muslim in the entire world that is out of this. That is not included in this concept of the mercy. That mercy is right there waiting for you. The thing is, like the hadith also mentions, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that I am as my servant sees me. I am as my servant tries to find me. If I go out and I want to understand the mercy of Allah, and I want to obtain the mercy of Allah, it is my responsibility that I go and I understand these things, and I take advantage of these things. Then I'll be able to, God forbid, someone does sin. When someone understands the mercy, and this is why I wanted to talk about this today. We all sin. But what happens, and this is all Islamic things aside, this is thinking from a logical perspective. I want everyone to put on their thinking caps, right? Now if I turn, or if I commit a sin, someone commits a sin, and that whisper, or that neglect, or rather that regret kicks in. I've committed that sin, right? Now I sit down and I think, oh my God, I have done a big sin. You know what? That's it. My life is off rails. I'm going to go to hell regardless. Might as well do whatever I want to do. Allah's not going to forgive me. And then waswasa of shaitan, that whisper of shaitan plays into this as well. Now someone who does not understand the mercy of Allah, when they commit that sin, they will think of this way. Oh my God, my life is done with. That's it, I'm done. I'm doomed for. My life is off rails. X, Y, and Z, whatever, this, that, and the third. And they completely separate from the deen, because they don't understand how merciful Allah actually is. But on the other end of the spectrum, what happens is when someone does understand it, and this is again from a logical perspective, that when you understand the mercy of Allah, when you understand how forgiving Allah is, when you understand the inclination for forgiveness that Allah has to forgive you as long as you turn to Him, what happens is if you do commit a sin, you will understand, okay, you know what? I screwed up. I made a mistake. But let me turn to my Lord and let me ask for forgiveness, because I know my Lord will forgive me. And not only will you be forgiven of that sin, but your iman will be boosted. Because you know that that dua that you made, the hands that you raised will be accepted, as long as it is sincere. That sincerity we'll talk about in the second half as well. The mercy of Allah is abundant. The mercy of Allah is everywhere. The forgiveness of Allah is everywhere. It is applicable to every single person that is here right now, any Muslim on the whole entire globe. My point being that there's one stipulation, is that you have to make the initiative to turn to Allah. And if we have this much mercy waiting for us, and if we have this many blessings waiting for us, if we cannot simply make one small initiative to turn to our Lord, I don't know what to tell you. So make that initiative. Turn to your Lord, ask for forgiveness, so that way not only can you be successful in this dunya, so also you can be successful in the akhirah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us that forgiveness and make us successful in the dunya. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam, ma ba'd. So I want to talk about the element of sincerity. And this is one thing that I talk about everywhere that I go. And this is one of the most important things, because this is what dictates the outcome of our deeds, if that makes sense. Our sincerity is what dictates the result of our actions. If someone is insincere in their actions, in their ibadah, and everything it is that they do, those actions are rendered useless. We know those that are the first to enter Jahannam are Muslims. Those that, just for the sake of time, those that died as shaheeds, those that gave for the sake of Allah, and those that got knowledge. Long story short, Allah will ask them, why did you do these deeds? And they say, I did this so, please you, your Lord. Allah will say, you have lied, you did the deeds for the martyr, that you did it so people can call you courageous, the one that gave so people can call you generous, and the one that learned so people can call you knowledgeable. And all of them will be dragged on their faces and thrown into the hellfire. May Allah protect us from this and make us sincere in our actions. Point being that sincerity is a very, very, very big thing. Now when it comes to obtaining the mercy and forgiveness of Allah, where does this tie in? The 3 promises that I made, if this was not a khutbah, I would ask you guys those questions. The 3 promises was, number 1, that if you turn to Allah, first and foremost, is that if you do good deeds, they're multiplied, and if you do sins, they are only 1x. Good deeds multiplied, sins only 1 time, and perhaps they are forgiven. If I intend on doing good deeds for the sake of Allah, if I pray my salah for the sake of Allah, if I give charity for the sake of Allah, these are when the actions are accepted, and these are the actions that I will be rewarded for. But if someone is going out and giving for the sake of people, to impress people, they are praying so that way people can compliment them, these actions, instead of being beneficial to them, will be harmful to them. And these will fall into the category of sins. Perhaps even to the category of being minor shirk, because they are doing actions for other people. May Allah protect us from this. That's number 1. So sincerity is very important in that as well. Number 2, whoever makes a path to Allah, turns to Allah. And the 3rd point being that forgiveness is always on the table. When someone does commit a sin, when someone does do something wrong, when someone does have any sort of shortcoming, it's important that they have that sincerity in them. When they ask for that forgiveness, how does one find that sincerity? If someone has committed a sin, and a sin that they fall victim to numerous times, whenever they make that dua for forgiveness, they should have the intention genuinely that they are going to stop doing that sin. Allah knows what's in the hearts. I cannot see what's in your hearts. You cannot see what's in my heart. You cannot see what's in my brain, and vice versa, I can't see what's in your brain. These things are only for Allah to see. So when you are making dua, when you are praying, I cannot see your intentions, but Allah knows, because Allah is all-knowing, plain and simple. So when you are making that dua, Allah knows where your head is at. If you're making that dua, Ya Allah, please help me to stop smoking, but after this you're going to go with your friends and you guys are going to do the same thing again, that dua is not sincere. If you make that dua knowing that you are still willingly going to go commit that sin again, that dua is not sincere. The element of sincerity is in place when an individual makes that dua, asks for Allah's forgiveness, and he knows deep down in his heart and his brain that I will do every single thing that is possible to stop myself from doing that sin. And if I fall victim to it again, I know I did my best, I'm going to turn back to my Lord. And I'm going to ask my Lord to help me stop committing this sin. This is where the sincerity comes in. And on top of that, there's etiquettes of dua. The scholars have mentioned the etiquettes of dua. One of the etiquettes of dua is understanding or fully believing that your dua will be accepted. This is another topic for another time, but sincerity. Not only the action itself being done for Allah at face value. If you're making dua, oh my God, look, he's making dua, he's so righteous. No, do it for Allah. But even within making your dua, make sure that you know whatever dua it is that I'm making, I am going to also try my best. This is where that sincerity comes in. This mercy, this forgiveness, everything is applicable to you. But you see there's one small stipulation of making sure that we make that initiative first and foremost, and Allah will handle the rest for us. Hadith mentions that Allah created mercy, His mercy in 100 parts. And everything that you see around you, the fact that you are breathing is a mercy from Allah. The fact that you are walking here is a mercy from Allah. The fact that you were chosen out of all people to come to the masjid to pray Jumu'ah is a mercy from Allah. Everything it is that you see is a mercy from Allah. The mother's love for a child is a mercy from Allah. Every single thing around you is a mercy from Allah. These things, we overlook them. But my point being that everything that you see is only one part of the 100 that Allah has made for His mercy. So imagine all these things that I'm talking about. One, all these things that are still to be spoken about, all these things that we are still to see, all of it that's being saved for the day of judgment, for after, the hereafter, all these things, we can be applicable to them. These things are for us. The mercy is abundant. The love that Allah has for you is abundant. Allah is near you. Allah knows what's in your heart. Whatever issue it is that you are having. And we talked about mercy and forgiveness and all these things. But I must preface by saying that trials and tribulations are also part of this as well. When someone is going through something, and this is another logical thought that I want you guys to think about as well. It's human nature for us to want to have some sort of support. Yes or no? This is why we have therapists, this and that and the third. Who better than Allah? The deity that put you through that trial and tribulation, this is a mercy from Allah as well. Numerous reasons. First and foremost, there will be a blessing in it that you will see if you understand that this is a mercy from Allah. Number one. Number two, when you have this issue, we know that that no soul is burdened beyond its capacity. So whatever trial and tribulation it is that you're going through, you know that you can overcome this. This is not something that you cannot overcome. For if that was the case, then it would be unfair and unjust, and that is not a quality of Allah. So whatever it is that you're going through is something that you can overcome. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, plain and simple. Number two, the fact that we can overcome this, proceeding forward, is that when you are in this predicament, when you are in this scenario, two individuals, one who doesn't understand the mercy of Allah and one who does understand it. Let's look at the opposite one first. Whoever is in this trial and tribulation, whatever issue it is, family issues, work issues, lost his job, lost his house, whatever it is, when someone doesn't understand that this is from Allah, he'll start resorting to other things. And I don't mean this in terms of a shirk way. Perhaps he might indulge in actions that are wrong. We've seen so many examples of people who will fall into substances due to the fact that they are so stressed and under so much pressure. But when someone understands, you know what? Yes, this is hard. This is difficult. It's not easy. But this is from my Lord. I know I can overcome this. I know that whatever it is, I can overcome this. And this is a test from my Lord. I will ask my Lord to make it easy for me because He is extremely merciful. Ya Allah, get me out of this issue. To bestow your mercy upon me. When someone has that understanding of that concept, that issue suddenly becomes a small obstacle. That issue suddenly becomes something so small, they'll be over it in a few days. My point being that obtaining the mercy of Allah is extremely important. You want to be successful in the dunya? Ask for the mercy of Allah. And there's one hadith, inshallah, we'll wrap it up with this. Rasulullah ﷺ was sitting with his companions, and he said that no one enters Jannah without the mercy of Allah. No one enters Jannah without the mercy of Allah. And Rasulullah ﷺ, when he said this, the companions asked him, even you, Ya Rasulullah? Even you have to use Allah's mercy to get into Jannah, that your deeds are not applicable? Rasulullah ﷺ said, even me. My point being that all this mercy that I'm talking about, and the few things that I mentioned in regards to obtaining the mercy, right? Simply making dua, pray, do the actions, Allah will give it to you. These things that I mentioned, the mercy of Allah is going to be your golden ticket to Jannah, plain and simple. So do whatever it is that you can to go out of your way to obey Allah, to obtain the mercy. Look into these things. We can talk about this for hours and hours. My point being, do your best as a human being. Tie your camel, then trust Allah. Allah will handle the rest. But you have to do your part in getting or making the initiative to obtain the mercy that Allah will bestow upon you. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of those who He bestows and showers His mercy upon, His blessings upon. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy for us and our families. Anyone going through any issue it is, we ask Allah to make it easy for those overseas in Morocco and Libya and any Muslim country that is affected. Ya Allah, please make it easy for them. Grant them that mercy that we spoke about. Grant them the afiyah. Make it easy for them. Be the ally that they need. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to be of those that have that mercy. And at the same time, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us, the way we are united here right now in this masjid, to be united in Jannat al-Firdaus. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. وأقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله، أشهد أن محمد رسول الله، أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. هيا على الصلاة، هيا على الصلاة، هيا على الفلاح، هيا على الفلاح. قد قامت الصلاة، قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر، لا إله إلا الله.
استقيموا واستووا طلعوا الصراط. If there's any space in front of you, please fill up those gaps. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. قال هذا رحمة من ربي فإذا جاء وعد ربي جعله دكا وكان وعد ربي حقا. وتركنا بعضهم يومئذ يموج في بعض ونفخ في الصور فجمعناهم جمعا وعرضنا جهنم يومئذ للكافرين عرضا. الذين كانت أعينهم في غطاء عن ذكري وكانوا لا يستطيعون سمعا. أفحسب الذين كفروا أن يتخذوا عبادي من دوني أولياء إنا أعتدنا جهنم للكافرين نزلا. قل هل ننبئكم بالأخسرين أعمالا الذين ضل سعيهم في الحياة الدنيا وهم يحسبون أنهم يحسنون صنعا. أولئك الذين كفروا بآيات ربهم ولقائه فحبطت أعمالهم فلا نقيم لهم يوم القيامة وزنا. ذلك جزاؤهم جهنم بما كفروا واتخذوا آياتي ورسلي هزوا. الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات كانت لهم جنات الفردوس نزلا خالدين فيها لا يبغون عنها حولا. قل لو كان البحر مدادا لكلمات ربي لنفد البحر قبل أن تنفد كلمات ربي ولو جئنا بمثله مددا. قل إنما أنا بشر مثلكم يوحى إلي أنما إلهكم إله واحد. فمن كان يرجو لقاء ربه فليعمل عملا صالحا ولا يشرك بعبادة ربه أحدا. الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.